All right. Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and do the Ahmed reading about living a feminist life. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And again, this article was actually, she actually ended up writing a book by the same name that kind of goes further into detail about this living a feminist life. I highly recommend the book. It looks just like this. And one of the conclusion chapters is actually also on there and will be part of your first assignment. And so that chapter is not the one I'm going to be talking about, though. I'm going to be talking about the article, Living a Feminist Life, that is in your textbook. And I put in there the feminist killjoy because within her book, she talks about being a feminist killjoy as this idea of being that person that is consistently calling out the inequality within a situation, or the misrepresentation or underrepresentation within particular things, and killjoying specific moments or social interactions. And I found that to be kind of an intriguing concept, but also one that we consistently feel sometimes when we're any part of an activist movement, is that you are consistently kind of being the downer in the room that points out the negative things. And it's not so much that you're attempting to do that, but you're attempting to change the way in which we interact with society, or we interact with each other. And in doing that, sometimes you feel very much like the outsider in and of itself. And part of the reason I created this assignment is for all of us to get in touch with kind of that place where we can feel as an outsider, and how we can deal with that using kind of this feminist toolkit that she describes, this killjoy toolkit. Because I think that these are very useful coping skills to deal with life, not just deal with being a feminist. So go ahead and check that assignment out. I think you guys will enjoy it. And I think it's something that you can reflect on and kind of think about and change as you move forward in your academic career, as you move forward in your life. And hopefully you enjoy it. So within the framework of the actual article within your textbook, though, she's just talking about kind of living a feminist life. And it's part of the original intro chapter, because it's part of the original essay that she wrote that she turned into her book. And I just kind of want to touch on some of the key points that she makes about feminism that I think are useful for all of us. And she talks about feminism as a DIY project, so a do-it-yourself project. So your feminism is going to look a little different than everybody else's feminism, and because it's based on your historical surroundings, it's based on your current societal positionality, it's based on this level at which you can engage, what you have to give, where you have to give it, and a lot of different circumstances. And so it's a do-it-yourself project. It's something that you have to work at, and it's something that you have to live within and live as part of your life. And with that, she talks about it not always feeling good. It's not always got the good feels, right? Like sometimes it, again, makes you feel like that outsider. Sometimes it makes you feel hopeless. Sometimes it's very overwhelming. Sometimes it makes you really freaking angry, right? Like, and pointing out the oppressions and learning about those oppressions and learning about other people's oppressions and perspectives, and learning that where you have power to elicit change, but sometimes where you're limited on power to elicit change, can be a really unpleasant experience. And I think that she does a good job about talking about the positives and the negatives of feminism. And that's part of why I love her book and why I recommend it so much. But it's something that I think we all need to acknowledge as feminists, is that it doesn't always feel good. And because of that, we have to have ways to recharge ourselves in that process. She talks about feminism as inherently critical, which makes sense because we are pointing out the things. We're naming and putting faces and names and language to some of the darkest oppressions that we have, some of the darkest periods in our life, some of the things. But in doing that, we are criticizing the world we live in, and that's inherently critical in and of itself. But it's also a very, very it's very much a process in how you criticize that, how you learn how to criticize that, and how you learn how to understand people within that and move through the world in that critical way, or with that critical lens. Feminism can be survival. It can be a way of surviving our circumstances. It can be a way of making sense and creating resilience. And like the next one says, it's a challenge to the universal. By me, and I think this goes back to that Bell Hooks quote that I put in the very original slide of the very first chapter, part 1 lecture. Queering is a space is not just about your sexuality or your sex or your gender. Queering a space is about being able to be outside of the norm and make space for yourself. And to that end, feminism is that. Feminism is about being outside of the norm, questioning, challenging it, challenging the forces that oppress other people and yourself, and creating space for yourself within that. And that's incredibly powerful. And it can be part of that empowerment that she talks about later. But again, it also goes back into that can be overwhelming feeling, and that's valid. All of that space is valid. And I think that that's what I love so much about this article. It also talks about feminism is its own theory class, right? So theory are just groupings of ideas that explain a particular circumstance or a particular thing. Social theory, which is what a lot of feminism is a particular idea or concept that explains something in our social world. Feminism in and of itself is its own social theory, in that it's saying, hey, we are watching how the social world is, and we're explaining it. And in explaining it and in naming it and in being critical about it, we are creating its own theory, right? We are creating our own understandings of the world, and here they are. And that is part of what feminism is, and it's part of why feminism is so inherently drawn into the academic space that is women and gender studies. And then kind of talking within that, feminism is a series of mental clicks. And I loved this depiction, this like little bit of light bulbs that are going off every time you're like, I know what they're talking about. I have experienced that. I feel that. I understand that. I have seen that. I have bared witness to that. That is those series of mental clicks that are just like, okay, not only do I understand this, not only do I see this, but this, I see me in this. In sometimes, and in a lot of circumstances, WGS classrooms can be the first time that you feel that in an academic space. It can be the first time that you see yourself in what you are learning. And that's an incredibly powerful moment. And I want to make sure that we're creating that space. And even as a marginalized individual that maybe isn't a woman, you still have that ability to feel those mental clicks and experience those series of mental clicks in the feminism that we practice at this point, because it's not about just women's perspectives. It's about all those intersections of identities, and it's about how so many of those systems of oppressions collide and interchange, and how they create different experiences in the world. And so I hope that you get your own parts of mental clicks, and I love being part of other people's little light bulbs that go off. And so feel free to share those, especially as we're going through our discussion Flipgrid videos, and as we're talking through some of our projects and things of that nature. I want to make sure that we're in our assignments. I want you to have those, and I want you to be excited about those, because those things are really, really awesome and powerful moments in our academic experience. And then lastly, feminism is bodily. And by that, we mean the body that we carry around in this world is the body in which assumptions are drawn on us from. So I am a white female, cis female, disabled body, and in that has a set of understandings, right? My whiteness is experienced different than my colleagues that are persons of color. My female are experienced different than the males in my life. My disabled body is experienced very much than that of someone who has mobility that does not require aids like walkers or a wheelchair like I do. And in experiencing the world that way, my perspective looks different than some other people's. And that doesn't make my perspective wrong or anything of that nature, but it's how we understand the world, and those perspectives matter. And it's that ability to have those conversations that makes feminism so important. And so I hope you got something out of this article. I hope you got something out of this lecture. And I can't wait to see all of those little series of mental clicks that happen for all of you. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next lecture. Bye, everybody.